All right. It's Thursday, November 20th. Got the little chocolate guy with me. Weird spot here. I just had to stand sitting all day, so I'm running this in a kitchen, which I know is a little weird. But hell of a trade today. Most contracts out. Well, I say most. I think I got 60% out at 500%, and the rest, excuse that, we're at 700%. So I'm gonna show you what I saw today. I'm gonna clip in maybe some stuff from yesterday, day before that, because I've been looking for this trade all week. Once you get an idea of system and really just how markets work, you kind of plan out your trades in advance of what you would want to see before you take something, and uh, and it's just as simple as that. You get an idea, you wait for it, and when you see it happen, it's like you'd be stupid not to take it. So I haven't made one of these in a little bit, just because I've been a lazy piece of shit recently when it comes to. I don't like listening to my own voice. It's very annoying. So, not that I really have to edit anything. These are pretty straightforward, but like I don't know, it's just a pain. I record every single day. I just not many things actually get out. But when I make good trades like this, I mean I gotta brag about it a little bit. Um, So this was the structure that we were in, and what the reason I was thinking downside for a couple days now is because the weekly that you're sitting in is just an area where you can fall. You opened up below on the weekly, and you can see now this weekly is mirroring the previous one. Excuse me. So that was the higher time frame thinking, and I'll show you how we got into that. So you bounce pretty much where you should, and I mean I got like 50, 60% the other day on a little bounce, but it's like that's not the goal. Um, that was just because I had to. If you see 40, 50%, I was about to do the whole drop a dollar on the ground where you pick it up thing, but that doesn't really work, does it? If you see $20 on the ground, but you got to put $40 down to then pick up 60, would you do it? I mean, I would do it, but it sounds dumb. So yeah, the box that you're sitting in is the weekly, and it's going to take precedent over the rest because that's your larger time frame. That's where your head's at. So we do this kind of slow grind up, and if you remember last week, I don't know if I even posted any of that, so I'm kind of just talking to myself here. But the way I caught a very big downside trade is simply waiting for the reverse punchback. So if you remember, when you have a box like so and you lose it, but then you punch back in, you move past that 50%, you have a good chance you're not only heading to the ceiling, which is your first target, but that you're actually going to make a new high um, in relation to your previous high, which was this. So that is a punchback, a mini one. But the same thing happens in reverse. So if you form a box like so, and that just so happens to line up with the 24 hours. So that's a pretty important zone. And you punch back inside, that raises the hair on my chest because I'm like, oh shoot, are we moving down for real? And then when you cross that 50%, there's your go. So okay, chocolate guy. The little dog wants to interfere today. Just great. But so the entry on that swing turned out to be a move below the 50%. Sorry, I had to move the dog out of the way, but what I ended up finding on this swing was a couple of things. So you have the reverse punchback, you have a lot of open space below you, and a pretty a higher time frame target below you, which that just smacked, man. I mean, you bounce right where you should. But the other thing I noticed was this kind of rotation. Not as clear cut as your classic 1, 2, 3, but a good idea of what would break, which is just simply this floor. and you know you're heading down there with some aggression. You're punching back in, likely going to make a new low. So a lot of things went into that, but I think the main takeaway is the reverse punchback. You get the new high, then you immediately come back in. And the second thing that made me think was like how all of this price action appears like it's very like tight, and there's not a lot of movement. Slow grind down, then you're going to get either a slow grind up or you're not going to go up at all because it's just there's nothing to propel you up. I mean, the only thing is this little chunk of open space here. And granted, when you do get up here, that's a one, a two, a three. There's a little like trigger right there to move more. And obviously, multiple times you said no at that level. So basically, if you're going up, you got to grab onto something. And when we moved up and didn't grab on anything, and we punched back down, and you got the open space below, a clear thing to break. I took it on the move past the 50% because that was end of day, and then you could swing. So that was a hell of a trade. That was most were out at 800%, some at like 1400, but all day if you held 2000%. So beautiful trade. And then basically the exact same thing just happened today. So, I took I used the following day's contracts to do a day trade. I think this was in this zone here on Tuesday, but that was because of this needed to get filled. And you do a slow grind up, and where do you get to? So I mean, the only thing you have, and we're looking at the hourly right now, is a box like this, which you could think of like this if you think that's the 50%, and that lines up perfectly because that's how this shit works, man. But so I'm watching, and what I noticed was not only the selling at the top, but all of a sudden now we're breaking below, and you have an hourly forming outside, and essentially what is open space, this little thing you create, this huge chunk here, I see us forming back in with aggression, with movement. Um, so that was my entry, and the only thing I wanted to see break was this floor right here. You can see it here, and you can see it here, and that was the only thing that was a high time frame floor that should have held if we were continuing to move up and keep this uptrend going. But obviously, you break it pretty hard. Um, this was I forget the percent. I think it was 500%, and then the rest were out at 700%. And yeah, we took I'm on Fidelity now, and you can't do zero dates unless you have I think it's like a ridiculous like $100,000 sitting in there, um, like not in positions, like just sitting, which is I'm not goaded. I'm not that goaded yet, but I'm getting there. So yeah, we can't do zero days. I had to swing tomorrow's 233s, but that's fine because it actually has made me better because it gives me a layer of like, I'm never trading zero days, so my contracts are either I'm making good profit or I'm making little loss and then I'm out. I'm not getting wrecked. And for a while it was great because I would make crazy profit, but then every now and then, you get wrecked. A Trump tweet would wreck you. But when now I'm constrained to these one DTEs, like it's a lot it's a lot easier, to be honest. It's a lot less stressful. And you can still essentially do a day trade. So yeah, I think I got in at the 233s were like $37 the start of that hourly, and we ran those puppies up to like 270, 280, something like that. Um, and I took some out here because I saw the bounce. But the main thing I was holding for was your larger time frame stuff that's down here, which is really, I mean, what did I pull that box off? Kind of looks like the two, not quite the four. Oh, my mistake. It's the weekly. Duh. Anyway, let's dial that up a little more if we can. Show you how accurate this is. So that's on ceiling, floor. and that's kind of all you had. If you wanted to go with an hourly target, this is how I would chop it up. Use like this is just so open. Also, another thing that I've been looking at all week is just how this was a big chunk that they can break. Like that's clearly a floor. That floor is upheld. That floor is upheld. Specifically, right? Um, what happened here and what happened here is interesting to me because that is almost like a magnet pulling us down, and we break that again, and it's like you're just moving. So, yet not as clear cut of a target as others. I mean, the perfect move here would have just simply been to throw your 24-hour floor, which is super obvious right next to you, and just ride it down to that. You notice we start to get a bounce, whatever there, but um, not one of the most clear cut obvious targets because I usually wouldn't take what's essentially a day trade down to a weekly target, but the 24-hour target was right there, and yeah, 500 and 700%. I'm not gonna tell you what size I am. I'm a gentleman. I wouldn't brag about my size, not ever. But yeah, the percentages are what matter, and if you're interested, it's very doable. So I gotta get on my shit. I gotta post more about these, not just when I'm bragging, but what I see before it happens. Because hopefully I got the recording, find it. But literally, I've been eyeing up this all week. And if we go to the ES, which you really should use this is fun, isn't it? But you should really use multiple different things to plan your trades. You're going to take like a main market trade, like an IWM or a QQQ. You typically move together. So um, yeah, I mean this one on the ES, you can see it pretty well as anywhere else. Just clear break of that hourly floor. You can see it upheld. Just I don't even know the news. I'm sure Trump said something or because I saw a BS headline about the jobs report coming out finally and being, oh, so shockingly good, but that just doesn't make any sense based off of the last 3 weeks of chaos. So yeah, I could clean this one up realistically, but anyway, so if we just go back to the weekly real quick and we try to get a sense of what's next. Well, I think this is where most people start to freak out. But what I would say is hold on to your shorts a little bit and be prepared for the eventuality that we're going lower. But there should be a bounce down here. You're coming down to a weekly floor, and even if there's not, because I mean on the ES right now, I'm seeing a couple things. One, you've got this above you, this big chunk, and in 2 hours, if that 4 hour is closing above without any news event, anything can happen overnight, or I don't know what the data is tomorrow, but that could be a substantial punchback because you have a shit ton of open space right above you, and we can get sucked back into that uptrend rather quickly. Next thing we're punching back in. Um, I think it's more likely you're heading down to the weekly floor, looking at the ES, but again, it really just depends what happens here with this 4 hour. But a punchback is not out of the question here. Anyway, in the event that we do get one more red day and we're closing below, then watch out because if this down here, if this can come to our rescue, which there's some sort of big buyers down here. When they step in and they form the weekly back inside, then you have a weekly punchback. Then you have, wherever the say the weekly closes here, forms at the bottom at 50 and pushes back in. Then you'd have like 3 straight weeks of slow grind up, or it could be a fast rally, but we'd probably be moving up. And also by the next end of next week, that could be a situation where, if this week closes down, next week closes in, and then this monthly at the end of those 2 weeks, meaning like tomorrow and the next one, would be opening right at the monthly floor, which again perfectly lines up because then you have a monthly chunk of open space, monthly forming on the floor where it can move up, and specifically a weekly punchback with, it's you don't get a lot of stuff that lines up better than a monthly that looks great and the weekly telling you that we're going to punch back and could have like 3 weeks of green. That's anyway. That's where my head's at now. That's all for this one. I'm gonna try to get on it, but we'll see what happens. Watch the end of day here. Yeah, come back soon.